Hello, Blazer fans, Blazers Edge readers. Welcome to another edition of the Blazers Edge Videocast. I am Sam Tung here with Dave Deckard coming at you from a remote location. But at the same time, wanted to obviously get to that Game 5 as well as really the entire playoff run for the Trailblazers as they fell in that Game 5 in San Antonio to the Spurs, losing the series in the second round 4-1. So, Dave, a number of things to talk about, I should say, today. But I think really the first thing that's worth touching on is, that this is the first time that the team has won a playoff series in 14 years. This is really the most promise we've seen in the last 5 or 6. So, what did you see? What did you learn from the Trailblazers in their first round series against Houston? And also their second-round series against San Antonio, really the postseason as a whole?
Well, I think against Houston, the Blazers showed that their stars can play with anybody given the right circumstances. LaMarcus Aldridge obviously had a fantastic series. Damian Lillard supporting him, and then with that huge game winner. The supporting cast was great. Helped out when necessary, didn't get in the way, kept feeding LaMarcus as much as he could score. And really, that's something that we have not seen. We forget, because we can't see back any farther than the beginning of the season, that there were real questions about the Blazers heading into this season. They didn't know what was going to happen in terms of LaMarcus's contract, LaMarcus's attitude, LaMarcus's production, and whether he could be that number one option that everybody kind of has wanted him to be for years. And I think he showed that this year, that is in the realm of possibility. Also, Damian Lillard's growth curve obviously was under question as a second-year player. He demonstrated that, and it came to flower in the postseason as well. So he had a couple of big developments there in that first-round series that I think should make all Blazer fans happy. That said, when you get to the second round and you get housed like that, you realize how far you are away from being really, really good. Now, making the final 8, sure, fantastic. And on the surface of it, that's great. I mean, top third of the league. However, the Blazers are pretty obviously in the bottom tier of that top 8, and there were 3 or 4 halves, and everybody else was a have-not. Blazers were still have-nots. And you can still look at that Houston series and say, well, had the Rockets played a little better, had the score tipped the other way, had Damian Lillard missed that shot instead of hit it, the Blazers don't get out of the first round either. So not to take away from their victory or their effort in doing so, but it's not like this was a clear-cut case of the Blazers are moving up into the league elite. They still have a long way to go to get there, and I think that they have a tough task ahead of them to bridge the next gap between being, a good team, a team you talk about making the playoffs, and a team that really contends.
Two other pieces to the roster, Dave, in addition to obviously their star players, and I think that we learned a lot about those 2 guys, but talk a little bit too about the 2 other groups. The first group is the role players, and really I'm talking about the other 3 starters, Robin Lopez, Wesley Matthews, and Nicholas Batum, and then also the bench. I think really that second series against San Antonio was a telling one at how far the bench really has to go before the Trailblazers are going to be ready to compete at a championship level.
Yeah, Batum had a good postseason, brought it together. Obviously, he was motivated, and he was the one guy in the San Antonio series who performed really well throughout. So you got to like what he did. Again, as always, you wish you had seen more of that sooner, but hey, the Blazers hope to build, as we said before, in such a way that you can accept the lesser games from Batum without failing, and just take advantage of the things he does well. And really, they did that throughout most of the year. So, hey, Nicola Batum, great season, good job, pat on the head, go home happy. Wesley Matthews, on and off. And when he was on in the playoffs, there was a little bit of one-on-one ball dominance going, which didn't necessarily serve the Blazers that well, except for really situationally in certain sets. You have to worry about him a little bit. I think he is the heart and soul, the vocal motivation for the team. But there are some weaknesses there that, who knows if the Blazers can live with those long term, or if they need an upgrade. And I hate to say it about West because he's a good player, but he's not going to be the take the ball over kind of guy. And if he's not hitting his 3-point shots, which we've said over and over again, his value really diminishes to this team. And then you have Robin Lopez, who really had a fantastic season and had a great first round in terms of effort, emotion, didn't get down when Dwight Howard was brutalizing him, fought back just as much as Howard fought back at him, which was exactly what you wanted to see. The Spurs series really exposed his weaknesses. Lopez couldn't get out to cover jump shots, couldn't get out to cover screens, had to stay in the lane, but still couldn't get rebounds and what have you around quicker guys. So it really showed that the Blazers need more than just Robin, even though they love him and he's appropriately in the discussion to be part of this team in the future. That he alone probably will not suffice. The Blazers are always going to run into a team that can exploit what he does not do well, and so you have to get an extra look in there at the center position.
Did you see anything during this postseason, Dave, where the team is kind of on the verge of a breakthrough in one aspect of the game? There are obviously a couple. I think that the Houston series might be the better example of this because Portland really wasn't able to get anything going against San Antonio. But maybe they learned a little bit of something about Wes Matthews' post-up game, or maybe in that San Antonio series they learned a lot about how they need to play help defense when Robin Lopez isn't playing defense in the paint. So was there anything that you really saw as an opportunity for this team that over the offseason into next season, they were close, but having a little bit more time, a couple more months to work together and really work some of those kinks out, next season they're really going to be able to hit the ground running?
I suppose the big breakthrough opportunity is Lillard's defense. When he was one-on-one, not having to deal with too many screens, able to play just one hand on James Harden, basically, he did well. I mean, really well. And he was able to anticipate what he needed to do, kept Harden out of the lane, et cetera, et cetera. So that was good. And when he played defense well, the Blazers were a much better unit. San Antonio, again, he got exposed all over the place, and the Blazers just fell apart. So it becomes obvious that if he doesn't play defense, there might not be enough help in the world to make them really, really elite. So that right there is probably the biggest potential growth curve. Really, honestly, I think even with the celebration through the postseason and the fact that this was more of a shakedown cruise, you really see more to caution about than you do to get enthused about going forward. The Blazers were still very much a team that either broke through or broke down, and there was no in-between to that. And if you press the right buttons, they break down pretty predictably. So you're going to have to see some personnel added on that bench, maybe a shuffle around in the starting lineup a little bit in order to kind of patch up those holes. Otherwise, the Blazers are going to be who they are, which is, again, a good team, but a team that can be taken advantage of.
All right, well, let's move to one of the more recent stories then. If the Blazers are who they are, that also means that as of now they're going to have that same head coach as Terry Stotts signing a contract extension with the Trail Blazers for the next couple of years. So there was a little bit of talk, both here on Blazers Edge and I think kind of around the whole organization, whether or not Stotts was going to be able to stick around if this season wasn't as successful as it was. So, Dave, I guess my question to you is, I know that you are one of the biggest supporters of Terry. A, your thoughts on the extension, and B, even though he got that extension, what sort of leash, what sort of patience level do you think the team is going to have, even though he's signed up for the next couple of years of being the head coach?
Sure. First of all, obviously, good move. Stotts earned it. If there was any justice in the world, he was going to get more of a chance to show what he could do. And really, the second round breakthrough, I think, kind of cemented that that it was done immediately and dramatically, I think, reinforced that the Blazers like the guy and the Blazers performed well, and they're going to reward good performance. And Stotts merits it. His coaching staff merits it. Good to go. No questions there. As far as the leash, really, in my mind, the lever here in this offseason and really over the next 2 years isn't the coach. It's still the general manager. Neil O'Shea will have a bigger hand in how far this team is able to go forward than Terry Stotts will, simply because Stotts is maxing out the potential that he has right now, or getting close to it, and the only way to get more is actually get more potential, right? So if O'Shea is able to pull another rabbit out of the hat, and it's hard to see where this is going to happen, by the way, because really the Blazers spent everything last offseason just getting the relatively modest upgrades that they did. They have no second-round draft picks forever. They have no first-round draft pick this year. They have no cap space. They have an MLE coming up, and that's about it. You're not at the point where you can start trading away future draft picks, because you need to be at a championship level really to do that. And the Blazers aren't there yet, and they can't take a gamble with their far future trying to build right now. So, you know, it's hard to see where the resources will come from to make this team a whole lot better. But that said, don't count O'Shea out. He always seems to do something. So we have to see what that will be. And really, I think the window here is 2 years. Obviously, you have a big problem in the summer of 2015 with all those contracts expiring that we've talked about. But you look at this team and say, if they haven't made significant progress over the next 2 seasons, maybe the whole system isn't working out. If they're going forward, then it should be no problem, because forward means up into the conference finals, basically. So really, you start the clock right now, and you're judging from this moment on whether this team is ready to go or whether this team needs to go.
Well, the team may not be on the clock, Dave, for the 2014 draft, but they're certainly on the clock here in the offseason. Coming weeks here on BlazersEdge.com and on the Blazers Edge Videocast, also going to have tons of updates on, the draft is going to be certainly part of it. Free agency is going to be part of that, as well as Dave and I are going to be able to break down everything that's happening in the offseason. So make sure that you keep it here on BlazersEdge.com. So Dave, any other preliminary thoughts before the offseason as the team moves towards that? Just a quick 30-second bit.
Sure, absolutely. It's going to be an inverted year for Blazer fans. Usually the draft receives a lot of hype and free agents is modest. This year the draft will receive very little, but the free agency period is going to be huge. So we're going to build up to July here, and we're going to see what will happen in terms of those trades and free agents, and that's the big deal this year. And it will mean more this year than it has in any year prior.
And Dave, this is the first time I can't count the number of years where Ben came out with the story about the schedule for the summer league, and it was one of the more irrelevant stories that Blazers Edge has had in a while. And additionally, I didn't even realize when the draft lottery was. I actually don't even know when it is now that I think about it. Obviously the Blazers aren't in the lottery, but I mean, this has been a long time since that date hasn't really been etched in our minds.
Yeah, welcome to being a good team. However, the Summer League still has some intrigue. You got C.J. McCollum, you got Myers Leonard going, so we will see. Leonard could use a 60-point, 20-rebound, 10-block performance in Vegas to get his stock going upwards again, so let's see what he can do. If nothing else, it's either going to be interesting in terms of development or interesting in terms of comedic value. We'll see what happens, but Summer League should be an eye-opener.
Well, we'll certainly have all of it covered here on BlazersEdge.com, and that's going to do it for us here, recapping the playoffs here on the Videocast. So for Dave Deckard, I'm Sam Tung. We will talk to you all next week here on the Blazers Edge Videocast. Again, thank you, everyone, for sticking with us through the playoffs as the Trailblazers fall in the second round to the San Antonio Spurs 4-1. and we will talk to you all very soon.